Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Carl and in this video we will continue in our 8 puzzle project. In this video we will make the basic UI for a project, the basic scripts that will be on the tiles of the game, and we will also make a few things that we will use along the way. First thing you should do is open up Unity Hub. This should be already installed. What we want to do is create a new project. I personally use Unity 2019, 2019.3. As far as I know, almost any version of Unity from 2018 and up will work for this project. I would, however, recommend using the newest version of Unity when possible. So we will use the 2D template. We will call this a puzzle game. And I'm just going to put this in my Unity projects folder. And I'm going to hit create. And now that the project has loaded, the first thing we must do is create a background for our project. And for this, we will use the Unity tile system. If you are new to Unity, do not be scared. Don't be overwhelmed by everything you see here. This is my personal setup. On the left, I have the hierarchy, which is essentially everything that exists within the game world. The bottom left, I have my project. It's essentially a file explorer built within the project that you can use to swap between or to get access to every single asset you have. In the middle, I have my console and every other. In the middle, I have my also a project and a console window, and on the right, I have my inspector, navigation, and tile palette. This is one of the things we will use to create the background for our project. In the middle, you should have a scene view, a game view, and that should be all you have in the middle. I have asset store, lighting, packages, project settings. All these things aren't necessary to have within the central view. So let's go to this scene view, and this is essentially everything that exists within our scene. It's just a camera and it's staring into the void. If you look up here, we have a few shader options. Just leave it at shaded so we can see what we're dealing with. You can switch between 2D and 3D views. As you can see, if we turn 2D mode off and we select our camera, we can now look around and see what our camera sees. Essentially, this big rectangle is what our camera sees in the world. If we click on the camera and on our right hand side we go to inspector, we can change it to perspective, and that's more the camera style we are used to in our three-dimensional world. Because this is going to be a two-dimensional game, it's unnecessary for us to have this. It can work. You can use a three-dimensional camera, but just to make things easier, I will be using a two-dimensional camera. I will, however, set the file plane to something like 50, because we don't need to render anything beyond that. Not that there's going to be anything to render beyond that. So first things first is you need to open up your tile palette window. To add the tile palette window to your current Unity UI, all you need to do is you go to Window, and then under 2D, we have Tile Palette. This window is going to open up like this. We can dock it to almost any window within Unity. I personally like it right here on the right hand side. And you will see here, create new palette in the drop down above. So we can create a new palette. I will just call this Project Palette. And I will save this within a separate folder called Sprites and Stuff. And now you will see we can drag tile sprites or a sprite texture asset here. Now, essentially what this means, if we enter 2D mode again in our main view, is we can enter this folder where our palette lies, and we can right click, create a sprite. And for this demonstration, I will be using a square, and I will only call it square. And we can drag this to our palette, and now we can create a square asset. So all I am going to do within sprites and stuff, oh my word, that is spelled horribly wrong. Let me correct that. And within here, if we drag the sprite, I'm just going to create a new folder called assets. Let me call it sprite assets instead. And in there, we will save the square asset. Okay, so once that is done, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a tile map. We need to create a tile map. Now, essentially what this does is a tile map is a texture or no, it is not a texture. A tile map is a canvas where you can paint your 2D tiles on. It's essentially like paint, but 2D and with a pixel-like feel to it. So, as you can see, I can paint a bunch of stuff there, and if we go to the game view, this is how it looks. So what I am going to do is right here in tile palette, I'm going to switch to the eraser, and I'm going to erase all of that because it looks ugly. What I am going to do is I am going to create a custom sprite for this project, especially for our background. And the program I am going to use is Piskel. Now, you do not need to use Piskel. There is a lot of ways you can get sprites and things to use in this project. I personally like Piskel. This is a program I'm talking about. It is a two-dimensional pixel art program. It is freeware as far as I know. Download link will be in the description if I get to it, if I can do it correctly. Essentially what this allows you to do is create art on a 2D plane, and then you can export this into your Unity project. Let's just erase all of that. What I am going to do is, if I on the left, bottom left here, you can select a color. I'm going to create a really light baby, well, not a very light, but a grayish blue color. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill, so the whole tile is this color. And on the right side, you can see how it's going to look. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a same color, just a little bit darker. And along the sides, I'm going to create a border. And this has no real purpose other than to make it look a little bit more pretty. I mean, it is a game engine after all. You don't want things to look boring. After this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to export, and I'm going to select the resolution as 32 by 32. You can do other sizes if you want, depending on what you're going to do. I'm going to export it as a PNG. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export it directly to my Unity project. Within my assets and sprites and stuff, I'm going to save my background.png. That is spelled correctly. And then I'm going to just minimize this, and as you can see, we have background now. If we click on our tile palette over here, we can now drag our background tile to there, and we can create a background asset. And as you can see, it looks small. Well, that is because of the sprite settings. One thing I like to do is having a separate inspector tab within my main window. So I can change settings here that I can see its effect on my right hand side. What I'm going to do, pixels per unit, I'm going to switch that to 32. I'm going to apply, and now you can see it is the full size. Now, before we go ham and paint the whole scene, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, okay, I am in scene view. I'm just going to leave the tile palette, click somewhere here. I am going to right click, 3D object cube. Now this is going to have one one purpose. It's a temporary object that's going to allow that's going to be in the center of our world, so we have a reference. So all I'm going to do is, when the cube is selected, to the right hand side, on transform, left click on the three dots, click reset. That's going to put it at 0, 0, 0. But as you can see, it's not exactly in the middle. And that is what we want. We want it exactly in the middle. Now, there are two ways to do this. We can either manually type in 0.5 and with y minus 0.5, but that's a bit, I don't know, a bit sloppy or a bit unelegant. So what I'm going to do is, in the grid position, I'm going to change to 0.5, and the y position to 0.5. That's going to put our cube, which is at position 0, 0, 0, in the world, nice and in between the grid right here. So with that selected, we can select our grid with our tile map, where we can just we can rename this tile map background. And when we select tile palette, we can active tile map, make sure that it's set to background. If you paint on other backgrounds, that's up to you. What I am going to do is I'm going to create a 3x3 just to see where our tiles are going to be within the game world. Once that gap is created, now we can go ham and paint the whole place. A better thing to, easier way to do this is to paint with filled box brush. And once you zoom out, just, yeah, put a whole bunch of this there. If we go to our game view, this is what the game is going to see. So as you can see, the camera is offset, and we're going to fix that now. Top left hand corner in your hierarchy, you can click on the main camera, and in the inspector you can see it is on 0, 0. But if we move our cube, just press W, or on the top left hand of your program is your different move tools. W for transform tool. Press in Control to make it move in full numbers and whole numbers, in integers. And right there on 1, -1, 0, that's the position we want our camera. So in our camera, we can select 1 for X and Y -1. And if we click on the gaming, or on the game view, we can now see that our camera is nice and center.